G'day guys, welcome to a special episode of Oceania where I'm going to be answering a bunch of your questions that you've been leaving me over the last couple of weeks. There were quite a lot of them, and I'm hopefully going to get to the majority of them today. They range anywhere between my techniques when it comes to playing the game, plans for new series, plans for current series, and even what I think a new City Skylines would look like. I'm hopefully going to get to all of them today, at least the majority of them, and at the very end of this episode, I'm going to be talking a bit more about a bit of a channel update and a bit of an idea of my future plans. In terms of what we're building in this episode, I'm going to be expanding Matilda Point and Dundee so that they meet in this area, and I also need to do a bit of maintenance on the public transport around the city because it's just needs a little bit of work. But not really going to be talking about what I'm going to be building. Instead, I'm just going to be answering questions, so without further ado, let's dive into the very first one. First question is by Mats Borgerberg, who asks, do I intend to continue to zone or will I be going back to placing building by building? And I agree, it does, it definitely has its limitations, zoning, and it's not my intention to only zone from now on. It's only something that I'm going to incorporate more into these videos. I really want it to work. I want it to be able to zone an area and get very similar results than if I was to place them manually. But placing them manually actually takes a really long time, and it's something that you only really see a slither of in my videos. I only really leave in a touch of it, and then I kind of fast forward and go, and now it's finished. And the problem with that is that I then spend so long working on a suburb that by the time I've finished working on it, I don't really have the time to then build the thing that I was most looking forward to, maybe doing the public transport for it or working on some nice park. It kind of blows the video out of proportion and, kind of lose time. So I'm trying to figure out the best way of putting it in. But in saying that, I don't really still plan to do zoning for all these places. It's not really like a from now on, now I'm zoning. It's more of a, this could work for some instances like I'm doing now, a suburb that kind of just sits in the background. And you know what, that's a good segue to the next question by Jimmy Van Lock, who asks, why haven't I shifted my attention to other parts of Oceania, such as some of the rural areas or even some of the smaller towns? Well, that's a great question, and I think it kind of comes down to the way that I've planned Oceania, or at least started Oceania, and the amount of detailing that I've done. So if you were to think about it, when I first started the series and I started working on the downtown, well, when I did all the roads, started working on the downtown, I built that very detailed. I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that it was perfect when I finished. And because I was trying to make it perfect, it took a long time to make a concentrated area. And by the time I was finished, I was like, well, I'd love to see some suburbs around it. So build some suburbs, and then all of a sudden that small area that I started building becomes a little bit bigger, but I still want to see some more things around it. And then that kind of just blows into 6 months. You kind of, a small little thing such as that turns into kind of a big project. And I think that's a problem with detailing at the very beginning, is that you have a bit of tunnel vision as you're working on that little thing, and then you lose focus of the bigger picture. Whereas I think now that I started Sunset City, I've kind of gone big picture first so that we can start detailing smaller things later on. And that's sort of the reason why Matilda Point has come together a lot faster, because I want it to be a bit more of a complete picture so that we can move to some of the other areas of Oceania. And that's the same for the airport. I kind of did that in one episode, so then I can come back and add in some better connection to the city, and then some public transport and some extra details. What I'd like to start doing is adding in a little bit more city management stuff into my videos rather than just focusing on the build, which is something that I, again, get really tunnel visioned on. I go, okay, I got to build this area. It takes so long, so I just go, okay, this is just another building episode. Whereas I like to incorporate a little bit of, figuring out how the public transport and how the connection between the rest of the city fits in with the thing that I just built. And in terms of moving on to other parts of Oceania, I actually want to get a little bit of Matilda Point finished, just to a point where it looks a bit more like an established city, and then we can move on to some other spots like smaller towns and rural areas and connecting up Oceania a little bit better. Maybe in about 3 episodes. Insert channel name here asks, what are my plans for public transport at Matilda Point? There's definitely going to be a couple of train stations. There's going to be a couple of bus stops. I reckon a bus terminal would be pretty cool over here. I was looking at the amount of cars driving into the actual downtown of Matilda Point, and there's a lot. So I feel like they definitely need some sort of public transport, something extra, but I don't think the metro is going to make it out this way. And I sort of feel like it'd be weird for the light rail to come out this way too. But I haven't done any of that stuff yet. So if you guys got any suggestions, hit me up. Secret Demon GF asked if I was going to build a city out of my comfort zone, which is basically an Australian, New Zealand, or a North American styled city, which to be honest is exactly the sort of cities I like to build. What sort of city would I build? So out of my comfort zone, this also answers a lot of other people's questions about European cities. It would be a European city for sure. I reckon that would be really, really tough for me. I've done a little bit of work in Skibbeth's series when he was doing Little France, but besides that, I haven't really built anything based in Europe. Not a huge amount of inspiration to build anything in Europe. I'm sorry to say to all the people who have been wondering about that. There's currently nothing in the works. I don't really have anything in mind. In terms of inspiration, I've got inspiration for lots of other things, but not really a European project. I don't really know why. I find American cities really interesting. I find American culture and history pretty interesting. So I think that's probably why I'm more inspired to do those sort of cities. Oceania kind of happened because of nostalgia and there's so many great assets on the workshop. KB Vortex asks, what do I think about my older Australian series compared to Oceania series? Yeah, so those of you who don't know, there was a different Australian series that I did ages and ages ago, but it kind of just fizzled out because I went too heavy with the props and man, the frame rate was just so terrible. And then I lost a bunch of files, so then a lot of it got kind of missing, so it kind of just died because I just planned it really poorly and executed it pretty poorly. But in terms of like the detail work and like the fun nostalgia, that was quite fun, and I do plan to take a lot of inspiration for the mining town that we build. That's going to be kind of a bit of a mix between Broken Hill and Kalgoorlie and all these other places that are kind of mining town based. CC and MK asks, how do I stay motivated to continue to build in-city skylines, release videos every week? Well, honestly, I am never not inspired to build something in city skylines. I am literally always thinking about it. I love it. I've always got new projects in mind. I'm constantly thinking about what I can be building in Oceania or Sunset City. I'm even still thinking about what I could have done in Mile Bay or in Springfield or in Bordertown or in Springwood, there's never there's rarely a motivational factor that stops me from playing the game. It's usually because, well, I guess in the case of 3 of my series, finishing Marble Mountain, Springfield, and Sichuan Province, I'd save games become corrupt and I lost, tons and tons of work. And some of them, Marble Mountain, I wasn't able to get into at all. Sichuan Province, I wasn't able to get into at all. So they're big motivational killers. Going back and redoing stuff or having to work with a buggy game, that kills motivation. I've got this idea that wouldn't it be cool if I did New York, but instead of doing a detailed version of New York, we just did like a very under-detailed, no detail at all. It's more about the management of huge amounts of people, did the city to an enormous size and worked on the public transport, the highways, the roads, expanding quickly, that sort of a thing. I really want to do that. I've even started an asset collection, but that is so far away in the future because there's still things that I want to do in Oceania and there's still heaps of things I want to do in Sunset City. I only just started it. And that New York thing is not even top of my priority. It's just another one of my ideas. And that New York idea would be a consideration of all the cities around that area on the east coast of America. I find that area really interesting and would love to do something based around there. But at the moment, got just as much inspiration to be working on Oceania and Sunset City, so no plans to finish them at the moment and work on this new one. But just to let you know that I've always got grand ideas in my mind. There's never a lack of motivation. And to go back and revisit an old series, as you can imagine, it's a little less motivating because I've already got these things in mind. I love the idea of going back to Marble Mountain and finish that series off if I had the opportunity to, or even Sichuan Province for that matter. But I'd love to, but there are other things that I would also love to do. So it's hard to justify going back to something that I've already done. I know it ended not the way that I wanted to, and I hate that, but I also would hate to put off other things that I would like to do. All right, let's answer some questions rapid fire. Why am I incorporating so much Simcity music? Purely for nostalgia, to be honest. I love the soundtracks. I still listen to them on a weekly basis, usually when I'm playing City Skylines, so it was a bit of a no-brainer to include them in my videos. Shah12 asks if I could redo any areas of Oceania, what would it be? I would probably redo the farmland coming into Dundee, stretching out towards Patterson, just because it feels a little bit awkward. The mountains don't really work, and I feel like the farmland is just a bit too small for what it should be. I think I try to squeeze in too many ideas. It's alright, but I think if I could change it, I would. But unfortunately, it's too large and too cemented in that I don't think I can really change it. Nos Redner asked, when am I going to be building the large interchange coming into Dundee? Well, I actually planned to do it about a month ago, but I also built one going into Sunset City around the same time. So when it came to building it, I didn't really feel like it because I already just built one. So I think I might do it after I build some sort of small town or a little bit further out somewhere else in Oceania, and then we'll get to that interchange. Visa wants to know if I've been to Latin America and if I plan to build a city in Latin America, and I have. I've been to Mexico, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile, and I plan to build something based in Latin America. Just keep watching Sunset City without giving too much away. I mean, I've already made reference to it. I'm building Cuba. I'm going to be building something based in Cuba. Travis on YouTube asked if we could see a racetrack in Patterson. I'd always planned to, but once I finished building Patterson, it kind of seemed like a racetrack would make the city seem really small. Just to build a racetrack in the scale of what a racetrack is really like, that would be the size of Patterson, so it wouldn't really work. Plus, we don't really have the space for it out there, so no, I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately. Archdad3 wants to know if I'm going to put the Oceania save game onto the Steam Workshop. I probably will, to be honest, at the very end of the series, but it's going to be a big one, so I mean, most people won't be able to open it. It's a lot of mods, a lot of assets, it's a bit finicky at times, there's some quirks, so I'll upload it, but, you know, people are going to be pretty much on their own when it comes to downloading it. They'll probably have to watch a video while I describe a couple of things, and then, you know, best of luck downloading that one. Jock McDonald's wants to know why I'm using less cinematics in my videos. I'm trying to make my videos a bit punchier, a bit more entertaining. I feel like cinematics get a bit boring, a little bit old, unless they're used right and used in context, but cinematics for cinematics' sake, I feel like is just a bit boring. Pa Avion asked if I'm going to be adding in custom road signs into Oceania. Billion Penny, who is a patron of mine, has created some using procedural objects, sent me the file, sent me instructions on where to put them, like an absolute legend, but I've lost my procedural objects button. I mean, you can see it on screen, I can't find it. If you guys know how to get it back, then that is the first thing that I'm going to be doing as soon as I get my button back. Lachlan Nichols wants to know if I'm going to be adding in a military base into Oceania or some sort of historical fort. Not really a military base, but I will be doing the Navy, like a Navy base somewhere, just something pretty low key. And then a military fort. I don't know, I think maybe, I hadn't considered it. That would be kind of cool. I know somebody was saying I should do some bunkers on one of the islands, which I do plan to do. But I don't really know about a fort. If you can find a good asset for it, then yeah, totally. That would be pretty cool. A few questions coming in about the editing side of things. What is my planning like when it comes to videos? How long does it take? What do I do to edit? The research, all that sort of stuff. So it's changed quite a bit lately. Originally, so the original process was I would load up the game, I would build something with something in mind already, and I'd record probably the best parts and some cinematics of before and after. I'd pop it all into Premiere Pro, which is my editing software, and I'd speed up the time-lapse footage so that it equaled about 20 or so minutes. And then I'd pretty much just talk over the top of it. That was my original way of editing videos. And they've, I guess, slowly gotten more complicated. I've added in more Google Earth images, I've done more references to other things, I've, you know, spliced in different other parts and maybe put a bit more time into research. But lately, probably over the last 4 or so months, and probably more so over the last month, I've changed the way that I've been editing my videos quite a lot, and I've seen a really big improvement with the amount of people engaging and the watch time, which is also contributing to more views. So I'm actually seeing a lot more views on my channel than ever before, and I think it's because the videos are more engaging, but I guess you guys are the judge. But the general census has been it's more engaging. And so basically now going into each episode, I have a spreadsheet of all the different ideas that I have, what I want to do, and an outline of what each episode's going to look like, an idea for a thumbnail, and the title, what the title is going to be. I usually will base the episode based on the title. And then the recording process is quite different these days. I try to think of it as a 3-part narrative, which sounds so wanky, but just hear me out. So we got the beginning, which is the setup. It's all about the introduction, what's the problem, what are we doing? And the middle part is all about solving that problem or working towards that outcome. You know, are we going to get there? What's going to happen? And the great thing is it's never forced. It's, you know, these things are always happening anyway. I'm always like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off. And then the ending is whether or not it happens or whether or not we fix it or what do we need to change. And I guess that's like the ideal version. It never usually works out that way. It's a bit of a work in progress. This is a bit of behind the scenes. I don't always hit that. Sometimes the beginning and middle take too long that I don't really get to the end, or it stretches out too much that the narrative gets all skewed. So I need to get better at how much I build in each episode and sticking to my time frame. I'll talk a bit more about that at the end of the video. Once I've got my footage, I transfer it to my MacBook so that I can edit my videos wherever I like. Usually on the couch when everyone goes to bed, or usually in the front seat of the car when my son falls asleep, or on holidays or wherever. Like, I just transfer it and it's great. So much better than editing on my big bulky computer. I then do any voiceovers that I need to, which honestly takes me a pretty long time. It takes me extra long these days with the way that I edit my videos, trying to make sure that my voice aligns up to what I'm doing rather than my previous way of doing it, which was just talking about what I was doing about 4 minutes too late. But it's always taken me ages. I've got a shaky, nervous sounding voice, so I have to do a lot of edits and a lot of changes to make sure it's not sounding too bad. And then in terms of music, I used to just record over the same soundtrack and not change it at all. But these days I like to make it so that the music matches the build and the flow of the video, depending on what I'm talking about, depending on what we're doing, and just change it like that. And also change it between each part of what I see as the beginning, middle, and end. Oh God, it sounds so wanky, but it really adds to it. And I think it makes for more engaging videos, and I prefer watching videos like this. I've been enjoying Ambiguous Amphibian lately, and taking a lot of inspiration from what he does, as well as a lot of other people as well. But I would like to be pushing towards this, maybe not in terms of every video, but there will be some videos that are a bit more styled like this, because I prefer the editing process. It's a nice change, but it's definitely a lot longer. So to answer the question, which I've now spent about 4 minutes answering, it takes anywhere between 6 to 15, 20 hours to build the episode, to make it in City Skylines. Then to edit, maybe like, I don't know, anywhere between 7 and 15 hours. Like, it sounds like a long time, but it is. I'm embarrassed to say how long it takes. It takes me ages. I feel like I should hire an editor, but probably can't really justify it. Plus, I kind of enjoy doing it, so probably not going to do that. All right, some other questions. 2007 Toyota Yaris and the Localize asked if I'm going to expand it to other games. Kind of. Maybe. Yeah, probably. I hope so. I really want to start playing SimCity 4. I saw the City Planner plays. I grew up with that game, so I love it, and I would really like to play it. Just got to find the time to do it. But expect a video like that sometime. It's going to happen. AKA Dolphin asked, what are my future plans for Sunset City in terms of building towns and districts and the Hard Rock Stadium? So, I mean, heaps of plans. I do plan to do pretty much all the things you've just mentioned. I want to get Sunset City so that the actual city itself feels like a city, and then we move on to other parts, building some smaller towns and getting them established, and building it in a way so that they're kind of built fairly fast, and then we can come back in detail and change things and add those connections, all those things that I've already mentioned about Oceania and how I wanted to change the way that I began the series, trying to make it big picture first, and then we get into the smaller picture in detail. So not too far away, honestly, building those outer areas much faster than you'd probably imagine, actually. The legendary Stephen Hayner asks, what are my plans for collaboration with other City Skylines people, getting people like City Walk, City Wall in, and Dirty H and other City Skylines people? I'd love to. The problem is it just makes it's really complicated to send it over. The save game is never easy to send. There's always pieces missing. There's always a weird transfer. And even when they get it in, so Dirty H had to build his thing twice because it didn't save properly, and that's a real pain. And then some assets were missing when I loaded it up, and he probably wouldn't have mattered, but I forgot to look, and then when I finally looked, it was too late, and yeah, so it's a bit of a mess. So I don't know, maybe more chilled cities, like vanilla ones where it's not so hard. It'd be great to do collaborations where, I've got this other idea just to add to my many ideas, but wouldn't it be cool if had a border town type of thing going on, and one City Skylines that had one side, and then there was a wall, or there was a bridge, or there was an ocean or whatever, and then there was another city, and took it in turns building, and I don't know, you could have some sort of competition or some sort of challenge where you had to do something with certain money or certain challenges. Just an idea, just another one of my many ideas. But I do plan to do that, but the way that the game is sort of made, it's hard to transfer between other people. It's kind of crazy they can do that in the first place, to be honest. Jessix asks, what are the worst aspects of City Skylines, and if there was a sequel, what would I add or remove? Well, I guess outside of the modding community, because they're already adding in like amazing assets and Move It and, you know, No Control, all these great assets and mods, I feel like I would love there to be better functionality when it comes to zoning. It'd be great if the buildings were grown next to each other and you could we could tell the game what sort of buildings you wanted to grow there and how big they were going to be. I'm sort of describing building themes mod, but you know, advanced settings would be really nice in terms of zoning. I think that would save so much time when it comes to building bigger cities, and that's sort of what I'm all about. I'd love to be able to expand a lot faster than, you know, detailing and spending so much time working on particular areas. But in terms of removing things, I mean, I much prefer to add things to the game or change, I guess maybe change the way that things looked. You can get some pretty great graphics with mods, but imagine just beautiful lighting. Imagine if like City Skylines 2 just had, you know, even I know I talk about, you know, Red Dead Redemption all the time, but imagine Red Dead Redemption 2 graphics in City Skylines where, you know, you had lens flare and you looked towards the sun and you got this silhouette, and the fog effect made the maps look way bigger than they were. You saw like your skyline poking through some fog, and you know, the darkness in the night sky was, you know, illuminated just with these lights of the city. I think lighting would just change. You'd just never get anything done. That would be the problem. Can you imagine how much time you'd spend just looking at a city? I would get nothing done. You'd get a video once a month. And then pair that with some sound effects. I mean, imagine just the ambient sound effects of a second game, you know, just going down towards like the suburbs and hearing the, you know, doorbells and people walking around the streets and the cars and nature sounds, and it'd just be beautiful. Ambient sound would make it. And even a soundtrack, you know, that changed depending on whereabouts you were, that, you know, kind of like this sweeping score, you wouldn't get anything done. That would be the problem. But I'd take any of that over any sort of gameplay aspects or even improvements to the performance. I would take graphics and sound and music over any of that. Last questions before I jump into the channel update. What am I planning to do with the islands surrounding Oceania? Are they going to be any luxury resorts, or am I going to take any inspiration from Polynesia or Malaysia? Am I going to include any of that? Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with those islands just of yet. I kind of feel like they're too close to have anything kind of not within, you know, the same sort of style that we've been going with. Plus, that's sort of similar to what I'm going to be doing in Sunset City anyway. Not with those type of islands, but, you know, taking inspiration from multiple types of countries into the same map. So I don't think I'm going to do that, but I would like to include a luxury resort. At least I'm planning to at this stage. We'll see how we go. There is a spot where I'm planning to do a bit of an inspired Queensland area, bit of a Great Barrier Reef. But for now, there will be something out that way on that island. But if you've got some suggestions, let me know. All right, channel update time. Man, this has gone on for a lot longer than I expected. At this stage, I'm looking at a blank screen. I was looking at time-lapse footage before, but I've run out of all that, so I'm gonna have to go back and record some. But in terms of the channel, so, you know, I've been changing things up. I've been shaking things up this year with my channel. I've been trying to produce some different types of videos and, you know, thinking about the future, what I want to be doing in terms of content. In terms of the two series that I've got, Sunset City and Oceania, I mean, Sunset City, we've only just begun it. Oceania is, I guess, the next one to be wrapped up, but it's not anytime soon. I've spoken about the couple of towns that I want to include, and I want to get there a lot faster than you might imagine. So Matilda Point is going to be not wrapped up, but we're going to be finishing the big expansion of it. I mean, pretty soon, maybe 2 episodes, and then I want to move on to a couple of the other towns, one of which is going to be inspired by Tasmania, like some towns around Tasmania surrounded by some beautiful bushland and a bit of industry as well, and connected up pretty nicely to Dundee. And I want to expand that and work on that in a very different way to how I built Patterson. And then the mining town out in the desert is also going to be quite different. Well, that'll probably be a bit smaller than Patterson. The Tasmanian town's going to be probably the second largest in Oceania. And then that other Queensland one is going to be super duper small, like a very, very small town. And then for Sunset City, I mean, we've only just begun it, so there's still a lot I want to do in that. And, you know, the way that I'm building that is so different. It's actually a lot I think it's learning from Oceania and implementing it in a different map. I mean, there's a reason why I spent so long working on that map. It's because I wanted to have so much of it established so that when we do finish it, it feels complete rather than areas that I wish I got to. You know, if I just sort of half did the Everglades and was like, oh, I'm going to do them later, good chance I probably wouldn't have done them later. So I'm trying to change the way that I make my series so that I have more complete projects at the end of each series. But I guess the problem is that when you build a city, I mean, you're building a city, you literally, I could not stop building it. You know, if I was going to build everything in Dundee that matched what a city is like in Australia, then we would just never finish. We'd just always keep on going. So if I meet at least 80% of what I was sought out to do, then I'm pretty happy with that. But what I'm sort of thinking about doing is just embedding into my schedule just one-off videos or 2 videos for like a very short series that's sort of based on an idea or a challenge that I have. Because I've got a whole bunch of ideas of videos that I want to be producing. I'm actually really, really inspired to make these, but they're just like one-off videos. One of which you're going to be seeing maybe even next week or the week after, depending when I get my act together. But they are videos you're going to be seeing every now and again. Whenever I've got a little bit of free time to build something, I'm just going to insert them into my schedule. And I mean, I hope you enjoy them. I am already really enjoying making those types of videos. I feel like I'm talking directly to my regular audience right now. This is 27 minutes into an absolute ramble fest. So thanks for sticking by and listening and hearing what I have to say. But this is kind of like the ideas behind the channel. I would like to be producing some smaller videos, shorter videos, even like 10-minute videos. My schedule used to be so great. 2 videos a week was fantastic, but I have to keep reminding myself that was in the middle of a pandemic and my kid was sleeping a lot because he's a newborn. But now he's 2 years old. Isn't that crazy? And doesn't sleep at all. If you've got a 2-year-old, you think you know what I'm talking about. So basically, I don't really have as much time as I used to, and I don't have those weekends as I used to. The time that I have to record a video is now just the 2 days that I have, which I'm super grateful for, but I only ever really get about a video and a half complete. So basically, just know that I am always thinking about videos and always wanting to release them, and always disappointed that I don't get 2 videos out a week. But I would love to get there at some stage. And we'll just see what happens. I mean, I think that shorter form content, I think is interesting. 10 minutes is, I find, probably sometimes the perfect fit for that, you know, that 3-part narrative that I've always spoken about. And sometimes when I try to squeeze it into, you know, say a 30-minute video, it's a lot of editing and it sometimes feels too drawn out. Whereas I think 10 minutes might be a sweet spot, but it's all a bit of a work in progress. This whole thing is a bit of a work in progress. And I really appreciate you guys sticking by and watching and all your support as per usual. You're absolute legends. And you know what? Speaking of legends, let's give a shout out to some of the wonderful people over on Patreon who are supporting the channel. Regan Stocks, Robin Regals, Dre Harmond, Vivid Swing, Pablo Hernandez, Paul Wright, Genius Leonard, Matthew Lewis, Tajia, Grant Fraser, and Ronan Kelly. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.